So, I've got a question for you guys, and this is something that I've been pondering quite a while. Um, Paldean Combat Tauros. Now, you don't normally get to see a Paldean Combat Tauros. Usually you see the Aqua form or the Flame form, but never the Paldean Combat. Now, one thing that I have a question on is, can I use a Paldean Combat Tauros in Regulation C? Now, this is not really a Regulation C team that I'm up against, but it's definitely a good test to see if my moveset's going to work. So one of the things that I'm going to be trying here is a Cursing Tauros. Now, I know what you're saying, Corey. You know what? Smogon already has a set for this. And it's true. Smogon does. But one thing they don't do is put the ghost typing to this Tauros. That's right, guys. Paldean Combat Tauros with a Tera type of ghost. Now, one thing that is really funny is that, there's a lot of Trick Room teams out there. The big benefit of having Curse on this Tauros is the fact that you can actually lower the speed. Now, one thing I've done with this Tauros is I've pretty much gone and maxed its defense to a point where it's way above the 300 range. Now, I didn't invest in any kind of speed or anything like that. I did invest in HP, I did invest in some attack, but for the most part, I did invest in the defensive values. By doing the curse, you are going to drop your speed. Now, this is something that kind of varies depending on what kind of team you're going up against, but I've basically dropped my speed here by 1 by getting an attack boost and a defensive boost. So not only am I getting those 2 boosts in this stat, but it's kind of putting me in a better position to go up against some more physically attacking Pokemon. Plus, as well, with having the Intimidate ability on the Tauros, it's actually going to drop the attack stat. So as you can see here, we actually ended up going into Tera Ghost after we had a Curse. We put Mimikyu to sleep, obviously, because quite frankly, if you can't get the Disguise away from Mimikyu, there's really no point in you even trying to do this. So we put the Spore onto him, we got him to sleep. We also have a Lumberry on our Tauros, so that way, if we get burned or put to sleep or paralyzed or anything along those lines, we can actually recover from that kind of a state. Now that we've actually got the Disguise broken and we actually have Gastrodon at sleep as well, I know for a fact that, by putting a Pokemon to sleep, it does have the potential of waking up. I know there's potentially 5 turns a Pokemon can be asleep, or 4 turns, but usually, second turn or third turn, they usually tend to wake up. So I went for the Rage Powder here. I've paired my Tauros with an Amoonguss. I know you guys see Amoonguss a lot, and I know I've used Amoonguss a lot. Not really a big fan, but it definitely is effective. So as you can see, we went for the Tera Blast here, and because we're Ghost typing, that is super effective onto the Mimikyu. And with the boosts that I have onto Tauros right now, that's actually going to help out with knocking him out. Now, mind you, Mimikyu is a little bit more of a flimsier Pokemon, but, it definitely helps having those boosts. Now, Gastrodon, on the other hand, Gastrodon is going to be a bit of a problem there, because quite frankly, I don't have any kind of Earthquake. I mean, I could technically go for, close combat, but that's going to basically drop my defensive stats, and I can't really regain that back, because as soon as you go back into, as soon as you go into a Ghost typing, Curse actually acts differently for a Ghost-type Pokemon. So you're going to see that here in a little while. We're actually going to get the opportunity to use Curse as a Ghost-type. But one thing that's going to be quite beneficial here is still the fact that we have our Amoonguss. With this Gallade onto the field, it is a bit of a scary Pokemon to see, considering the fact that it's a Psychic type. Psycho Cut or any kind of Psychic moves like that are going to be super effective, but as well it has the potential of Shadow Sneak and Sucker Punch. So that's going to be kind of one of those things that you're going to have to think about when you're going up against a Gallade. So because we're Ghost, I don't really want to get hit by that, so we Rage Powdered. Our Amoonguss survived, which is fantastic. We're going in for the Tera Blast here, and of course that's a Ghost typing. Super effective onto that Gallade, and we're just knocking him out in one hit. And that's amazing. The fact that we've actually been able to do that with this Tauros is pretty fantastic. Unfortunately for us, we are going to lose our Amoonguss here. He's burned, so that basically clears up the 2% or 2 health points that are still left over. Our Tauros, though, I know is about half the hit points. By using Curse as a ghost type, it actually takes away half your hit points. And, you know, with Sylveon coming in, I don't really know if I'm going to be able to survive a hit from that thing, especially if it does like a hyper voice. It turns into, of course, a fairy type. And then, you know, if it has throat spray, that actually kind of boosts it. And, you know, there's so much potential here for, like, issues. So one thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go for the Curse. Now, one thing I was debating on is if I was going to go for the Gastrodon or the Sylveon. Now, the 2 Pokemon that I have in my party, I actually have two Pokemon that are also ghost types. So one thing I didn't take into consideration when I made this team is the fact that I have so many ghost types. But all the different Tera types definitely help play a factor here. So as you guys can see, we actually went for the Curse. We got the Curse onto the Sylveon, even though it protected, and that is huge, because that's going to allow us to get more damage. Now, the thought process on the Curse factor is when you go up against Garganacl. You know Garganacl has that Salt Cure technique that it has where it constantly takes away health. Well, if I ended up doing a Curse at the end of a battle, for example, if the Pokemon tries to stall me out, that Curse actually does more damage every turn. So with Sylveon in this situation here, if it was able to survive some hits, you guys would actually be able to see that. Now, unfortunately for us, we actually lose Tauros due to the chilling water from that Gastrodon. And I mean, realistically, I mean, Tauros did a lot of work in this match, and I'm very, very happy with the set that I have. The only thing I might want to do is maybe focus a little bit more on maybe the hit point values, maybe even put like a Life Orb or something like that onto that Tauros. But then again as well, like, I mean, if I put Life Orb, that's only going to just, you know, take away more of our health, and with the Curse, it probably wouldn't work out anyways. But, I mean, the fact that we have Curse, it boosts up our attack stat and our defensive stat. I think that is going to be key. You Rage Powder as much as you can, get those Curses, and then eventually go to your Tera Ghost, and then go right in for the match. So, I think the team is overall pretty unique. I don't really see what I'm doing here very often. Especially with Tauros. Like, again, I haven't seen a ghost Tauros, but I kind of had this idea back when I was working on a lot of my Cantonian sets. There's so many different Pokemon that you can actually go into a match with, and so many different variants now that, I mean, you know, you have a Water Tauros, you have a Fighting Tauros, you have a Fire Tauros, you have a normal Tauros. Why not a ghost one? You know, initially I thought that the combat form, when I saw the original leaks, I thought it was a ghost type Tauros, and you know, I was actually kind of disappointed. So the fact that we actually managed to be able to do this is quite awesome. Now, with Regulation C still in effect in Season 6, I definitely want to try out this team there. But the biggest thing I did is I made this team for the Global Challenge 3. So that's actually starting tonight at 9 o'clock. I'm going to be entering that, and then we're going to go all weekend and see what we can do.